Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. Once again, I'm Bradley and I'm joined by someone who once had a thought that if Bradley couldn't see and he starred in a film, who would he get to play him? The film's already been made. It's Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, but playing his part from any given Sunday and never shutting up and shouting really, really loudly. That is a nightmare for Stu. So, how you doing, Stu?
Well, I was expecting a little intro related to Nightmare on Elm Street, so that threw me a little bit. But
yeah, I forgot it a bit. I forgot what it was going to be, and I kind of thought this one up earlier when I was having sight issues.
I quite like it. Yeah.
I mean, it is a nightmare, but me going for Al Pacino.
Yeah, as long as you just go hoo-ha every now and again, that'd be fine.
Yeah. And I've got to raise my voice.
There you go. Cockney Pacino.
Oh, there we go. That's he can play Cockney Miyamoto.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's going to be, yeah. It's a film even David Lynch would look at and just go, I don't
know. Too weird. Too weird for me. I'm out.
Talking of David Lynch, he once made a PlayStation 2 advert. I'm going to say PlayStation 2. But he makes films and he got involved with games in some way, which is going to segue us nicely to what games have you been playing, Stu?
Yeah, for David Lynch to have done that, they really must have parked the money truck outside his house. Because, why? But I enjoyed that advert 20 years ago or wherever it was now. In the intervening 20 years or so, I've been playing games. And the most recent game, segue, is Guilty Gear Strive, which I've not played a massive amount of. But I was desperate to get from the off because A, I've always liked the games that I've played in the series, and B, it's just one of the most beautiful games that's ever been made, in my opinion. Obviously, you've got to have a leaning towards liking that anime style, but if you do, it just looks amazing. I mean, they've even done it so the frames of the characters and the animation on the characters is sort of interpolated so that it looks like it's not completely smooth. It looks like animation. It looks like traditional animation. But you're doing that and you're fighting and playing and it looks fantastic. But it takes that 2D aesthetic and then just flips it right round and does full 3D camera moves. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. It's like, Capcom abandoned having 2D sprites and they've got this new thing which is clearly just 3D. But it's got it. Guilty Gear's got its cake and eating it too because it's got this incredible engine that just looks phenomenal. But there you go.
Yeah,
you also hit stuff, so good.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that always struck me about the Guilty Gear games is, do you know sometimes when you hear, it's like the graphics are so good, it's like playing Toy Story, it's that good or something like that. Guilty Gear is the one game where you look at it and just go, that's like playing an actual anime or an actual cartoon. It's just, you don't, when you look at it, it doesn't look like it's being controlled by people. It looks like it's been completely animated, and that's the animation.
Yeah.
Been scripted and everything. It just looks so good. The one thing I am disappointed with Guilty Gear Strive, though, is it's pronounceable.
Yes. Yeah. Because what's that with Xerd or Zerd or
Freerd or whatever?
Tenard, is it? God knows.
I don't know. I think you look at it, just go Guilty Gear that one.
Yeah. No one knows, Brad. Don't worry about it. Honestly.
No.
Yeah.
You turn up to the fighting tournaments and they go, "What you playing?" And they go, "Who? How'd you pronounce that one? Write it down."
Just hold up a little placard with the name on it because it's just that's all it's worth doing.
I might, if I ever have another child, I might name it after the Guilty Gear series.
Oh no! Don't do that. Don't do an Elon Musk on us.
I'd have more respect if he named his children after Guilty Gear games.
Yeah.
But before we go way too far, how does it actually play, though? In terms of, because I've always found Guilty Gear, it's a weird one where it's easy to play, but you really have to go deep to get the most out of it, I found.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever kind of mastered it. And I bought it on the Dreamcast, which is, I think that was the very first release. It came out on the PlayStation as well, but I think it was slightly different and cut down and came out after. but the Dreamcast one I imported, and I hadn't even seen like the graphics. I just
Yeah.
heard that it was a good game, and so I was kind of blown away by that. And I'd love to go back to it and just see if it still holds up. But I don't think ever since that time 20 years ago that I've got any better at it whatsoever. But I still have a load of fun just mashing the buttons and going a bit nuts.
Yeah, I'm glad it allows that. It's a weirdly accessible game that shouldn't be accessible.
Yeah.
It feels like it's geared towards. It feels like
Hey.
it's geared towards professional tournament fighters and people like that. But the fact is that anyone can pick it up and play it in single player and just button mash to a degree and get something from it. It's something that lacks in certain other fighting games. I think like Street Fighter's lost that since Street Fighter 2. Because I remember playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo Edition, and it was just you and a couple of people you knew, and you thought you was half decent at it, and then you realised you wasn't when you went into the big wide world and online play started.
Yeah.
But then later versions of Street Fighter got to the point where it was such a high level to even get going into it that it just turned me right off. Whereas Guilty Gear, it feels more like a Virtua Fighter in a way, or a Tekken, where you can just pick it up and play, or even Mortal Kombat. Probably not as easy to go into as Mortal Kombat, but yeah, the Guilty Gear games, you can get enough out of it. And if you do want to learn, I actually think over the years it's had some of the best tutorials in it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I think it has quite high damage, which is good. I mean, it sounds like it shouldn't be. But like that Samurai Showdown game that I reviewed not long ago for the site, well, a few months back, it has high damage. And I think that in single player, that's really good, because having low damage is normally one of those things that games with tons of combos and over the top combos leans into. And that is only good for people who are really professional, really good at it, because to get a win out of it, you have to be able to string together like 20 hits or whatever, and that's not good for the schlubs like me who can barely string a 2-hit combo together. So
Yeah.
you want it to be good high damage output, be a bit cagey, and then when you do strike, it does a lot of damage, and that's what you want, because then it's more about your timing and your thought than it is about your the absolute utter skill that you need.
Yeah, I mean, I like a fighting game, and Guilty Gear does this as well as Mortal Kombat, where give me my basic inputs, which is my high punch, low punch, high kick, low kick, or strong punch, or whatever you decide to do with those mechanics. And if you can still get some damage in by going sort of like jab, jab, kick, and get some damage in, and you've got the basic combo, so your back forwards button, your down down diagonal right buttons, and stuff like that, along with something, and you can get those combos in. You've got a game that allows that and allows you to progress doing that. That encourages me more to want to learn the longer combos, because at least I know if I mess those up, I can still go back to those. Whereas Street Fighter, I felt that if I didn't know the longer combos, I had no chance.
Yeah, it definitely ended up that way, I think. I still enjoy them, but I'm no good at them. But
No.
yeah, so good game to have.
We'll have a tournament. I'm sure we can do that. We'll have a tournament and see who's the worst fighter.
Pronunciation tournament.
Yeah. The loser has to pronounce all the Guilty Gear games.
That's too much of a challenge for me.
I mean, there's going to be an update to Strive that's going to make it sound ridiculous as well at some point.
Oh god, yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, it'll just be a random set of Roman numerals and letters, just like the previous one was, and incorrect punctuation.
Do you reckon they looked at the Near Replicant remake with all the numbers after it, and the makers of Guilty Gear went, "Ooh, that's an idea. We could do that, but with letters."
It does seem to have crossed over from that, and anime's terrible for it, isn't it?
Yeah, I know there's a game that actually has like syntax in the actual name of the title. It's like a visual novel type platformer type thing, or whatever it is. It has like code syntax in the name of the game, and it's we're running out of ideas for names, so people are just going for it.
Yeah, I'm out. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I'm glad it's good. I must jump into that and give it a try at some point. So my first game, I'm going to bring up my notes, is Phantom Abyss, which is a bit of a darling amongst all the podcasts and YouTubers and the indie scene at the moment.
Okay.
And what you've got here, the best way I can describe this is it's the best bits of Mirror's Edge crossed with Indiana Jones.
Ooh.
So, yeah, you say that. It is a roguelike.
Yeah.
I know. But not a roguelike like other roguelikes. So, essentially, what you've got here is this online stroke off. It's an online game, but I think they call it asynchronous now, but whatever it is. But you're going against the rest of the world. So you get these randomly generated levels, and the whole world shares them. And then everyone has a run at these levels, and only one person in the world can complete it. Once they've completed that level that's been generated and captured the relic within the level, it resets and randomly generates more rooms and things like that, and everyone goes at that one. And you get to see the ghosts of all the other players that are playing it. And it's a really interesting concept. And yeah, the Indiana Jones thing really only comes in because you're in these temples and you run through, you complete a floor, you go to the next floor, you complete that floor, you go to the next floor, you complete that floor, you get your relic. Or you don't, in my case. I've not completed a single proper run.
Yeah.
But what this has to it, and the reason I talk about the best bits of Mirror's Edge, the worst bits of Mirror's Edge were the combat. The best bits were the free running. So it's got that really good feeling of inertia. I think more recently, Ghost Runner probably is the closest you'll come to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, it's kind of got that feeling of inertia. But what you do get in this as well, and you kind of almost got this spelunky type thing going on, where you start off and you've got the whip, which helps you move around the levels really well. Again, maybe some Indiana Jones influence there. But you can get other buffs and perks and things like that that can help you get through the levels. And they're not the same for everyone. So you might get different perks to someone else. And there's some difficulty pickups in there, I think. I don't know if they're meant to make it more difficult or whether it is just, or whether I just got unlucky with a couple of my pickups. But it's satisfyingly challenging. I'm not playing it, despite never having actually won a round yet, so to speak. I'm not getting frustrated with it. It's like it's satisfyingly challenging, bit like Spelunky. Well, it took me many years to actually get to the end of Spelunky, or I've never actually completed a daily run on that properly. It's that kind of thing. I'm happy to go in once or twice a day, fail miserably, and go back again. But it's like this first person thing. These parkour first person things seem to be really popular at the moment. But it's absolutely outstanding. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but yeah, it got its hooks in.
Oh, very cool. What are the graphics like, and what's the graphical style?
So it is 3D. It's very hard to describe. It's not low quality, but it's not at the same time like these wonderfully realized worlds. You're in like these dark Aztec style chambers in a way. So it's dark, but it looks the part. It looks not quite lo-fi. I wouldn't say it's like that kind of era, but it's not like sort of like really pushing the graphical boundaries. I would say you're probably looking at a polished PS3 era type thing, but it works.
Yeah, cool. What was it called? Sorry, Phantom
Abyss.
Oh, Phantom Abyss. Right. Okay.
Yes, it's absolutely outstanding. Cannot recommend it enough.
And it's a rogue unlike.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's roguelike in the way that Tetris is a roguelike. That's probably how I would describe it.
Fair enough.
So your next one?
Well, that's it. I've not really touched anything this week, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, no, just that's the only thing other than carrying on with a bit of Captain Toad, Mushroom Head.
Yes, I do like Captain Toad. I wish I had a chance. I wish I had completed it my first time around, but yeah, it's such a cracking game. It looks lovely, and I want to see him do more with that down the line.
I hope so. I hope they revisit it in the future. Yeah.
I don't know. I've still got to play 3D World. I need to actually check to see if the Toad levels are in the remake of 3D World or the remaster.
I would have thought. Well, I would hope so.
I mean, it's Nintendo, so who knows? But I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, cool. What was your next one?
So my next one I've been playing is called the Fermi Paradox. But I had to double check the label because I kept calling it the Fermi Paradox, and it's not the Fermi Paradox, it's the Fermi Paradox.
Cool.
And I'm playing, this is the thing with indie games. You can't just go, oh, this game's just like that game, because we're hitting a point nowadays where creators, they're not held back by any limitations anymore. They can just go for it because there's a market for them now, whatever they decide to do. And the Fermi Paradox is a text-based adventure management god game.
Whoa.
And if I was in a god game now, I would shut my daughter up, but unfortunately people have to put up with her screaming. But yeah, it's really interesting, the Fermi Paradox. It's a text-based adventure. So you remember the old text-based adventure games where you was very limited in what you could type to get them to do things. You know, you're sitting there on your BBC Micro at school playing whatever text adventure game you've been playing, and you go, pull down your pants, and the game goes, oh, what you saying? Try again. And they felt very limited. So all I can say really about Fermi Paradox is it's as though someone played FTL and went, right, I don't actually like the gameplay bits of FTL. What I actually like is the story decisions in between the gameplay bits, and went and made a game out of that. So you kind of get given these scenarios that you start with, and you will go, I'm trying to think the best way to explain it. You might get this whole bunch of flavor text that comes in, and you've got to make these choices of, what do I want this civilization to do? And you might say, like, this one civilization, put everything you've got into learning technology. I want you to be a spacefaring civilization. I want you to go and find new planets and stuff like that. But you've got other civilizations that might be starting on other planets, and you might go, actually, no, I don't want you going out into space. I want to hold you back. And you've got all these choices that you make. And one scenario I had was I created it, like, I kind of allowed these two civilizations to really sort of like push their own technological advances. And one of the planets that had the space crew went off to venture into space for the first time, but during their takeoff and when they went into space, another civilization advanced so far, but they wasn't a pleasant civilization, and went and blew up the planet. So I had these guys in this spaceship had left this civilization, but they then became the only ones left, and were trying to then find another planet to go to, or, you know, another civilization they could become part of. And it kind of went from there. And it's like, each time you play, I played it through like 3 times already. But I don't know if this is early access. I'd need to double check, or whether it's actually a full release yet. But you feel like these choices matter in the game. And it's just, yeah, I don't think I've played, like, 3 times I've played it, and everyone's been different. It feels so natural. But what you've got, I remember talking about a game last year, I think it was, might even been 2019, called In Other Waters, where the entire game was played on almost like this interface rather than actual graphics of like exploring, but you kind of made up in your head what was going on. And the words, the storytelling within the Fermi Paradox is so good that you get these images in your head of what's going on, and you kind of fill in the gaps. And I say, but the fact that, you know, I accidentally lost another one, I accidentally led everyone into this cross-galaxy war as well. It's just very hard to describe and go, that's what, but it's just so good. It really is so good. And it could well be one of those surprise inclusions later on as people get to hear more about where you're talking about this in Game of the Year, because it is, honestly, it's what it does is spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't understand how it works. How do you interact with it? So what are the inputs on the control pad or the keyboard or whatever?
Right, so basically you get given choices. So do you know how, I mean, if you played like FTL or things like that, where you kind of, or Slay the Spire? No, you've not played Slay the Spire.
No.
But
I am the wrong audience.
No. So basically what happened, you'll, like, in those, basically you play your game, you kind of go, oh, look, you've come up to these people, and, oh, what do you want to do? Do you want to do this, or this? You make a choice, and it goes, they're actually going to kill you. And then you branch off onto that story, and something happens. basically, but they're kind of like just individual scenarios. They don't actually have a long-term effect on the story. But in the Fermi Paradox, it kind of gives you those same sort of options to do things, and you kind of click on the one you want to use, and then it actually matters. It kind of feeds into what happens next, but it's all kind of like a multiple choice type thing rather than text typing adventures. And my first initial reaction was could I type stuff and do it, but it works as it is, and it works really, really well. I say it's such a hard game to say to someone, watch it and see how it goes and see what you can get from it. Or listen to me going, oh, it's good, and going, oh, yeah, I get it. You've got to play it to understand it. I implore everyone to give this one a go, especially if you're someone who grew up in the 80s and played, the BBC Micro-based text adventures, because they gave you a sense of being there without ever having been there. And this just takes it to a whole new level.
Fair play. Yeah, well, if there's a demo, I'll get it and stick it on and feedback on what I think.
And yeah, there's a theme as well going on, because I did destroy a civilization, but it wasn't Earth. So I thought, do you know what? Earth's going to hell in a handcart, isn't it? So why not destroy all humans?
And why not? Yeah.
I even segued nicely. I know. So I've been playing the remaster. Right. So I don't know if it's a remake or a remaster. This, but I've been playing the updated version of Destroy All Humans on Nintendo Switch. And all I can really say is with Destroy All Humans, I got this in 2005 as a bit of a treat when I first started work, when I moved, and I didn't like it. I kind of saw it in a magazine. I was like, oh, yeah, this looks really good. I really can't wait to play it, and played it. And I was like, don't like it. Don't know what then made me think, oh, do you know what? I'm going to try and play it again. However, I've matured in those, 15, 16 years. And I've played the update, and I don't know if it's got good quality of life updates, but if it has, it's worked. So essentially what you've got with Destroy All Humans is you take the role of this alien whose other clone has been captured in area 51 type scenario. It's like full B-movie schlock about it. And basically you need to try and get him back, but you also need to harvest the DNA of humans, because every time you clone an alien, your DNA is getting lost, and eventually your alien species will be wiped out. So that's the general premise of it. It's got some social political commentary on it, but you can ignore all that. But basically, you go in as this alien, you need to harvest human DNA, not get captured, and try to find your friend or previous clone. You've got this on-foot sections where you do a lot of stuff with ray guns and other bits you can earn. You've got these bits where you're in your flying saucer and you just go hell for leather, destroying anything in your path, which is great. But what you've also got is these almost Hitman-esque sections where you have to don these disguises of humans, and you've got to be quite clever with these, where if you don a disguise, you've got to make sure you get someone when no one else is looking, so there's a bit of stealth in there. And you have to continually harvest DNA to keep yourself, like the powers to keep the human suit on, in a way. And so you've got that to it. And what I found was I actually enjoyed it a lot more when I approached it almost with like this, now I get it because I've played Hitman type feel. I enjoyed it a lot more. But the game has one major problem, and that is it gets in the way of itself. The first hour to 2 hours of that game is so much hand holding and tutorial based stuff and leading you down this story and stop start and everything like that it just wasn't enjoyable to start with. But as soon as it kind of lets you go, great fun, absolutely great fun. Say with the Hitman games, when you kind of get the chance just to go back and retry levels and try and do them in different ways, it becomes much more enjoyable than like the first run through of any of the Hitman games. And I kind of looked at it and just went, right, I've enjoyed it, but this would have been better as giving you X amount of sandbox levels with high score based mechanics or something like that, where you get points based on what destruction you do or what you've managed to harvest and stuff like that, rather than this story based way through it. And I get that this is a remake, this is a remaster stroke remake and not a reimagining, but I'd like to see them take what they've done with the remaster and maybe do something adjacent to it with something going forward, because it's a really interesting game that I enjoyed, just didn't love.
Yeah, it never really leapt out at me as anything. I mean, I haven't played it, but it never leapt out as one that was an absolute essential. And it was one of those that when it got a remaster, I was kind of like, okay, why? But,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it sounds like it's reasonably fun. It sounds like a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Kind of fine to pass the time kind of a game, really.
And that's exactly what it is. If it wasn't for the hand holding early on, this could be perfect as a pick it up, you've got half hour to spare, blast through a sandbox level, get a high score, put it down. Do the same in a couple of weeks. It'd have been perfect for that. But yeah, as it is, I want to see him do something else. I want to see more of this. It's made me want more. But if that's what it was designed to do, this remake, then I think it's hit the right mark, because it's definitely a lot better than I remember the 2005 release ever being.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's good that they've done that. Like you say, it could be a springboard for something more and something better.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But yeah, interesting. It's 3 really different games I've played this week, and yeah, each of them have got they're hugely pros. And I don't usually say this. I don't usually do a game of the week, but check out the Fermi Paradox. It's just so different. It's just so different to anything I've ever played before, really, that it's just, yeah, it's wonderful.
Nice. Cool.
So just moving on, we'll keep this one fairly short, because otherwise it risks turning into a rant about society and government and stuff like that. But one of the things that's affected a lot of people recently is in the UK, as of what date are we recording? The 7th of July. We're a couple of weeks away from all rules being completely relaxed in the UK. And I keep hearing people, whether it's like on TV, on the radio, or even sort of like in the street, talking about, we've got to do this for people's mental health. But no one can actually seem to say what that is, what the mental health benefits are. No one seems to be using the same argument when it comes to actually, I want us to extend what we're doing. I want us to protect us further because of my mental health. I'm scared of what's coming. I'm scared of what's coming, and that affects my mental health in terms of going out and things like that. But also, if I can't just lock myself away, because that's going to make me look in the wrong or whatever. So it has those effects. And it got me to thinking, people will bandy around the term mental health as what feels like a get out of jail free card with an argument. Because you almost get, as soon as someone says, but my mental health, or, but it's for the benefit of someone's mental health, it's very hard to argue that without sounding like a complete arsehole. And I've noticed something that's crawling in more and more. Is that something you've noticed, or is it just something I'm making up in my head?
No, I don't think it's something you're making up in your head at all. No, it can unfortunately be weaponized. And again, it's like it's the small minority ruin it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
When it comes to misappropriating that, like people who don't have hidden issues, who are wearing the sunflower lanyards, to denote that they've got an issue that means they can't wear a mask. But there's a handful of people who are just buying them and using them, even though they don't have that, which cheapens it and undermines it for the people who have genuine problems. Yeah. And I think there are some people who do that, and I think it is, it's very difficult to have this conversation without getting into the whole political debate. It definitely kind of feels to me personally as though people want their independence. They've been conditioned by society to be told there isn't really a society.
Yeah.
That we're all individuals living our individual lives and we all have our individual rights. And that we don't work towards a greater goal anymore, that we kind of, the way that we succeed is by operating for ourselves. And obviously, I don't believe that that works for everybody or it's the case for everybody. But I think that's what the people who've been in power for at least sort of 10 or 15 years want. Because it's a bit of an easy divide and conquer when you do that. And I think that those people are the ones who are the first to shout out about their rights and about, oh, it's damaging my mental health, when they perhaps mean I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
Which is, a very distinct and different thing. There's overlap between the two, but being, upset and being unhappy and being, feeling like that you're afraid because of the pandemic. Those are all very different things from depression and mental ill health.
Yeah.
Now they can bring those things on, but they're not the same thing, and they need to be treated as separate. And I think that, unfortunately, what you have to do, or what you should do as a society, is to first off treat the infection. You've got to treat the cause. You've got to get rid of the pandemic.
Yeah.
As much as you possibly can first, and then you deal with the fallout. It's a classic, to lean on my kind of IT training. It's a classic incident versus problem scenario. So
yeah,
a dam bursts. You don't stand around going, oh God, how did that happen? Where did the wall break? How did the water get through? Why was the pressure suddenly increased? While there's water running through the streets and sweeping babies along to their death.
And someone going, yeah, you just got to learn to live with the flood. Just learn to live with it. Learn to live with the plague.
That's right. Yeah. So you don't, you deal with the incident. You save the people without even thinking about what is going on.
And then go, what caused it?
Yeah, and then exactly, and then go at the end of it, or when you're a bit further along than we are, you go, okay, well, the fallout from this is terrible mental ill health in some people, so we'll have to help. But what you can't do is pretend that it doesn't exist just so that you can try and continue the life that you had before this happened, because that didn't work for the Second World War, and it's not going to work now.
No, and it's one thing you mentioned actually, and that just really struck a chord with me, and the way I think mental health is being misrepresented in the media, especially, but also sort of like a lot of public people, is you mentioned about people are confusing poor mental health with just being unhappy at the moment and miserable at the moment because of a situation, because one of the biggest misconceptions is that you can't be happy but also depressed at the same time, which you 100% can be. You can be entirely happy but still suffer with depression and other mental health issues. But yeah, it's one of the things you see is people going, I can't, I'm fed up with being indoors or not being able to go out, and it's really affected my mental health. It's making me unhappy. That's not the same thing. And one of the things me and Lo spoke about when they was talking about the delay to from June, whatever it was, to July 19th, one of the things we spoke about is what actually are they delaying? I get that you've got, some venues can't open fully, but we are pretty much back to a world where you can go out. You can do a lot of the things you was doing before with mask and social distancing on. So what's a lot of it's back to how it should be anyway, just with a few extra precautions. And one of the things I always got was, I get that some businesses are struggling. So like you've got sort of like people can't go to concerts or couldn't go to concerts or full concerts. You couldn't get full football stadiums and stuff like that. And I get that to a degree, but there's got to be other ways around it, rather than just going, do you know what, everyone back in, it's absolutely fine. There's got to be other answers to it, because I can't wait to go back to the football again. But the idea of going back right now to a full capacity Anfield fills me with dread. I wouldn't want to do it. Whereas a 50% capacity, 75% capacity, where there's some form of social distancing, yes. Or where it's at capacity, but you've got to wear a mask, sure. But this idea of just going, sod it, that terrifies me. That fills me with a lot of anxiety. And I think I'm hearing more and more people, I mean, whether it's just in my bubble, that are feeling those same anxieties. That's an actual anxiety. People who have had anxiety, who have flirted with the idea of, oh, we can do better. We've shown we can do better. We can allow home learning or home working. We haven't got to do it full time, but it gives us options. We don't need to test children at the end of 5 years at senior school and put them under undue pressure. We're learning that people react differently in different ways, some for the good, some for the better. But we seem to now being overtaken by, I've been a bit unhappy during this time because I've not been able to go and see my Aunt Flo at the concert. And that's depressing. That's really depressing. It fills me with even more anxiety. But I can't, not that I want to argue, because I never want to say that someone who is unhappy couldn't be suffering with mental health issues. But you can really tell when people are using it as a get out of jail card, or as a way of going, now don't argue with me because I've said mental health. And yeah, it's really frustrating, and it's having a really weird impact on sort of like the way I'm thinking about other people with mental health, because I've now got this thing where I'm going, have you really though? And I feel really bad for questioning that as well.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, yeah, I know.
I'll try and do my best. So first off,
Sorry, right.
I totally agree that depression is not a mood disorder. So you can be happy and depressed.
Yeah.
And I think that people find that to be a paradox along the lines of your Fermi Paradox you were talking about before. But it's not paradoxical. Think about it like if you break your leg. So if you break your leg, you don't stop wanting to walk. You don't stop wanting to be the person that you were. It's just when you put your weight on that leg, it hurts. And it's the same with, in a similar way with mental ill health, in that you don't want to be any different and you don't want things to change. It's just when you put your metaphorical foot down to do something, you can't do it. And it is exactly the same as part of you inside that is ill or broken and needs to mend, either on its own or over time or with intervention, exactly like it would in the regular physical world of health. So yeah, you're completely right on that. In terms of people going on about why do we have to do it all on one day? Why is it this big thing? That's very simple to me. That's because the government want to have a win. They just want to put a win in the column, as like we've beaten a disease, just like they would like we've beaten such and such a country in the war.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of those things, is a very obvious tactic of the right, where they like to have an extremely simplified narrative, black and white, right and wrong, no shade of grey. And it just helps to have a really basic story that they can trot out. And you could see them rubbing their hands with glee, the Tories, the little piggy little hands, when Freedom Day became a thing, because they were like, oh, we can latch onto that.
Yeah.
Just like they latched onto the term Brexit, because it's great PR for them. It's great marketing. Being able to go Brexit and just slap it down on the table, and be able to do the same with Freedom Day. And they can just be like, there you go, we've won. And this isn't even as much to do with appeasing their backers as it was when the pandemic started and they were still trying to get people to spend money. This is much more about winning the public vote as a set of kind of grasping little trolls at the very top of our society, wanting to stay in power when the whole world is falling to bits, which it is. So, there's that, which is bad. And I think that coming on to the final bit to talk about people weaponizing and misusing mental ill health, during this conversation, I think it's because it's another easy narrative and an easy shortcut for some people. I don't think many people abuse it. I think that they latch onto it and use it in a way that, like you say, because they don't really understand the nuances, it's very easy for them to do that, when really all they mean is, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I want something to, I want this to stop. And I understand that because it's a human urge, but it also can't just be. That's why we have people in charge. That's why we're supposed to have people in charge who are responsible, because you can't leave it to a mass, to a populace to decide what's good for them, because they will mess it up. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be formed into a culture. And then, you're then proponents of and a part of that culture. And I think it's part of a culture war as well. And just the last point is for me is it's like Juneteenth. So there's this big thing. Oh, slavery was beaten in America on this day. Blah blah blah. And the black community quite rightly said, well, no, because I don't know the details that well, but it's like the seceded states in the South carried on slavery for months and months, if not years after. And really, this particular date is the actual time when and it actually was the time when slavery was finally abolished. And it took decades to recognize that, because people just want the simple narrative and not the truth.
Yeah.
And I think we're in the middle of suffering for that a hell of a lot at the moment. And there you go, rant over. That was a big one.
Yeah, no, and it's why you get the arguments of people latching on to protect our statues and things like that, rather than having the wider discussion. No one's erasing history. It's actually bringing the discussion forward more than anything. But yeah, what really struck me today, and it's one that really wasn't expecting it today, and it kind of made me think a little bit. A guy got onto the bus today, wasn't wearing a mask. And he kind of looked at people. Well, a few people were giving him dirty looks. I only know that because he was saying, people are looking at me funny. And he kind of sat down and went, do I need to wear a mask? And someone turned around, his mate turned around and goes, oh, yeah, he's not the 19th yet. And this guy, in a typical sort of like Essex, I don't want to say right-wing style, but okay, we'll go for it. A typical Essex right-wing style went, yeah, but, it's close enough. What difference does 2 weeks make? And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, you're not wrong. It's not as if a virus or a pandemic is going, June 19th. Okay, right. We sorted it. We're going to stop being a pandemic on June 19th. Off you go. He's right. What difference does 2 weeks make? Yeah. If, they've set a date, it's
totally arbitrary, completely arbitrary.
He was doing it in a proper sort of like, I'm an arsehole kind of way, but I kind of got the point. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. We're going to hit this Freedom Day on June the 19th. And then Christ knows what's going to go on. They're removing bubbles from schools. And I can only go on first-hand experience that my son's school has been good with cases in terms of they've not had to shut down or overall send anyone like in massive groups home. But they had an outbreak that affected year 10. And basically they was able to say, right, year 10, everyone in year 10, you need a week off self-isolation. And that was it. The rest of the school could carry on because they had bubbles, which worked. Everyone's back in school, which is fine, and they're keeping to their bubbles, which is allowing them to isolate smaller groups when needed. And everyone's celebrating this idea of getting rid of this. And I don't get it. I don't get how we're going, let's stop this thing that's working.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And it's just like really confusing me. And that's the thing that worries me. Everyone has just gone, I say everyone, I hate using everyone because it's not everyone. But enough have turned around now and gone, right, June 19th, I'm losing my mask, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm worried about the reaction I'm going to get when I'm still wearing a mask. Especially as I've bought one now that's got a non-binary flag on it as well. So, I'm just going to make myself a double target.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, no, it's scary times. I don't want to kind of just go off on a rant on it, although it's very, very tempting to. Another rant, because I've already been on one. But it is kind of, you would think, my way of thinking about how it would be closed off would be, kind of like everything starts ramping down and people are generally healthier and people are less vulnerable and the vaccinations have gone up and it's at a low controlled level. There's no odd variant knocking about, and then like after a few tacit weeks or months of people understanding that, oh yeah, it's pretty much under control as it can be, then the government go, right, yeah, okay, we're back to normal. This is the back to normal date, and this is when we decriminalize these sorts of activities that we criminalized. And everyone would be like, yeah, well, we know that it's been like that for months, but this is the formal day. And there's this confidence, that it's kind of all done. But this isn't that. This is kind of, we're setting an arbitrary date. It's happening. Just go with it. And it's kind of like, yeah, but if you look at all the stats, it's now seeping, it's the Delta variant. It's getting into the younger people. Okay, they're not dying, but that means younger people who haven't been vaccinated then amplify it.
Yeah.
And they amplify the Delta variant through the older people who've had vaccinations. And because it's so much, it's more transmissible, then even if you're vaccinated, you've got more chance of people getting it, because it's the younger people who are managing to stay up on their feet, because they're young and healthy. And it's kind of like, you only have to look at this data for 5 minutes to kind of understand this. So what's the motivation? Who's getting paid for this? So yeah, it's very, very disturbing to me.
It's all to protect the ghouls and the rich. That's all I'm going to say on that. Otherwise, I will go on and on and on about that one.
Yeah,
it's sad. And I'd say it's helped me actually just like ranting a bit about it. I mean, if I did have to say, please, if you've ever just dropped the word mental health to support an argument, don't do that. Please don't do that. It really does not help things, and it loses the impact of what talking about mental health actually is. I'm hoping that's something we've never done or never encouraged, on the podcast or the website. We've always been open about it, but if you've ever done it, don't. I don't think many have, but there's a more and more starting to, and just that's all I can say. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think it's an important message. Don't abuse those. Don't abuse that terminology, and use the right terminology. And just be honest as well. I would add. I mean, you don't have to agree with me, but I would say, just be honest about your feelings, and if you feel that you're afraid, then say that you're afraid of things. I'm happy to say that I'm afraid of the situation.
Yeah.
It doesn't unman me. It doesn't make me any less of a person or any less of a an ordinary human being to admit to fear. And I am afraid. I'm afraid of getting it. I'm afraid for myself. Like there's the cowering little child inside of me that's afraid of getting a nasty disease. But there's an even bigger part that's afraid of my wife getting it, or my elderly mum getting it. It's just, I'm afraid of those things. And yeah, so don't abuse the terminology, and don't pretend that it's something that it isn't.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I don't think I can add anything of substance to that. So yeah, with that, unlike Al Pacino, I'm going to slowly step away, keep quiet, and let you take us out.
Who and indeed ha. So yes, as usual, if you've liked our content today, which it was a lot, it was heavy. Hopefully you agreed with it. If you disagreed with it, feel free to shout at us. Just get in touch, communicate. Having conversations about these things is the only way, really, to progress. I like to keep my mind open. I'm really willing to be challenged on stuff. Bradley isn't. He's a very closed-minded individual.
Mental health, don't argue with me.
So don't approach him. It's very much a good cop, bad cop situation, So yeah.
It's not don't approach me. It's just if you try and have a discussion with me, you won't get a word in edgeways, will you, Stu?
Shall I try speaking now?
I'm not going to follow it up. Don't worry.
I was just waiting for you to pounce. But
honestly,
yeah,
but I promise I won't.
Oh, your daughter joined in as well, and just perfect timing. It's a family thing.
I'm definitely going to shut up now. Go on, Stu.
Okay. We're going to leave it there. So in the meantime, have a great weekend. Stay safe and stay sane.